Well, I saw it from the air because I recognized it as being the airplane that sat in town for many years. I recognized it right away.
Yeah.
There was no doubt I knew what it was. The pieces of the airplane that we used to play in.
We just borrowed one of our helicopters and flew out there, and up she came for the first time in how many years? She's back in the air. And man, oh man, never did we ever think that we'd be flying around in that thing here above Dawson.
This is the incredible true story of legendary Fokker CF-AAM, from its first flight to its untimely end, and the team that brought it back to life. It was dubbed Canada's first airliner. It became a symbol of the spirit and ingenuity that helped revolutionize air travel in the North, the Fokker Super Universal. It was on a Sunday morning, December 5th, 1937, that pilot Les Cook loaded a group of 6 miners into Fokker CF-AAM on what was to be its final journey. The field at Dawson City, Yukon, had been covered by a recent snowfall, making it difficult to gain speed for takeoff. Cook taxied up and down the field several times to make a path for the wheels before beginning his takeoff run. Despite these precautions, the Fokker failed to come free of the ground and ran through a ditch at the end of the field before coming to a stop. After 3,252 hours of flight time, over 8 years and 11 months, CF-AAM's working life was over. The wing, engine, and instruments were salvaged, while the frame was abandoned behind a service station in Dawson City, left to vanish into history.
But I understand now, we pretty much know the story of this airplane, but one of the gaps in our story is how and when and why it got hauled from the airport, where they abandoned it, into town.
Well, we hauled into the town. Another fellow and I.
You did?
The fuselage, yeah.
Is that right?
So you remember it as being in Dawson?
Yeah.
Then you.
This one was in Dawson. We got it right off the Dawson airport. When we got it, picked it up, it had to be 2 or 3 years at least. There was nothing left. The fabric was all gone. I got a hold of George Simmons, the manager of Northern Airways, and I asked him how much he wanted for it. Well, he said, what about a bottle of gin? Because he was a gin drinker.
And then years later, 1974, somewhere in there, it was Tony and I that took it out from the bush at Granville.
Oh, is that right?
So he had rediscovered it out there. He knew where it was but didn't know what it was, and I knew what it was but didn't know where it was. So we hauled it out together.
We were just little kids behind at that time it was Franklin's garage. We would always go over there and play on it whenever we went by. And we all knew it was an airplane. It sat there for many, many years. Then probably in about the late 60s or early 70s, there was some work done in that yard, and of course a lot of that stuff was taken out of there. And that particular piece of the fuselage disappeared.
So that's how you rediscovered it, was from the air.
From
you were
the
flying
air.
by and you saw it down there in the bush by the road.
And of course, as soon as I'd spent a lot of hours in it, flying it,
Yeah,
when I
of
was
course.
back in the
Absolutely.
old days. So I recognized it right away.
Yeah.
There was no doubt I knew what it was. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that was the pieces of the airplane that we used to play in.
Did you know it was a Fokker Super Universal?
No, I didn't at that time.
Okay,
But,
at
when
what point?
Bob,
What point?
Bob, on this hunting trip, and I think maybe it was even before that, Bob happened to mention that
When Tony told me that he knew where this frame was he used to play in, I knew it was the Fokker Super Universal AAM. I knew it had ended its days here, and I didn't know where it had actually ended up sitting, and Tony knew that. So with him telling me what he'd found and where he'd found it, I knew exactly what it was, and I knew we had to go and get that and haul that piece of history out to a place where we can do something with it. In fact, to tell you the truth, I remember when Tony and I arrived there, and he finally, he says to me, there it is. And of course, I have an image already in my mind. I don't think he'd mentioned to me that it's been cut in half. So I was really expecting to see the full-length fuselage. When he pointed out to me my first reaction was one of disappointment because it's cut in half. All we have here is the front half. So I hate to admit this now, but initially, my initial reaction in my mind was, no, there's not enough there, let's just leave it. And we could have just turned around and headed back to Dawson, but then something else flashed in my mind and said, hey, it's now or never. We're here now, we've got the way to get it out. We take it right now, we think about what we do with it later. Well, when we look now at how that whole story has unfolded and what all it has led to, I mean, I'm sure glad that we decided to go for it that day. And do you remember all those kind of sleepy-eyed looking alternate lifestyle types started to appear out of the bush? And, and I don't know, we must have woke them up. It's the middle of the day, middle of the hot afternoon. We must have woke them up, I don't know. And they seemed to be pretty bewildered as to what's going on. I think we took away their laundry drying rack, maybe. Who knows, eh? And I guess the only thing we're still trying to find out is who cut it in half and took it out there.
The fuselage of CFAAM, as well as parts from its Fokker sister ships CFAJC and CFATJ, were sent to the Western Canada Aviation Museum in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Then, in 1981, Cameron met fellow pilot and aircraft restorer Clark Seaborn, who would spend the next 17 years resurrecting this aviation icon.